Right now, the weather is mostly calm across the U.S. High pressure is creating a nice and warm weather bubble for us as we go into early November. And at the same time, the tropics are heating up in the Caribbean Sea. And due to our stable weather here in the States, a door has essentially opened to the Gulf of Mexico. So any tropical activity that sparks up in the next few weeks could theoretically thrive in the Gulf of Mexico and potentially go towards the U.S. To top it all off, in the west, a mass of cold air is about to start growing in intensity. At some point, that air will escape and bring another cold blast across the majority of the lower 48. When exactly is that going to happen? And what if that cold air meets up with some leftover energy from a tropical system coming out of the Gulf of Mexico? Well, we really have to understand the scope of the upcoming warm-up before we can talk about this inevitable crash of cold air. A very large northward bulge in the jet stream is going to allow much warmer than average temperatures to compile across the central and eastern U.S. Around November 3rd, everyone from Dallas, Texas to Chicago will likely be dealing with unseasonably high temperatures and favorable weather overall. And outside of a few pesky rain showers here and there, the vast majority of us will be enjoying some really nice fall weather as this big warm bubble builds and becomes more rigid across the eastern half of the lower 48. But a dynamic weather pattern change is on the horizon, as there is high confidence that a powerful trough will impact the weather next week. This upper trough will bring a large area of rain, snow, and well below normal temperatures across the western areas of the country first. Moisture will move southeastward from the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies regions, and then make its way into the Southwest and Central Rockies. And then as this cold pocket of air continues to drift across the west, it's eventually going to make it into the Great Plains and kind of slam into the warm air that's been building up. This collision zone will be a focus for a battle between cold air and warm air, creating rain, snow, and storms moving forward. You see, every once in a while, the warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico gets a little feisty, and it marches its way north to claim more land. The cold, dry air from the Arctic sees the commotion and doesn't like it, so it sweeps down across the Rocky Mountains to meet the warm air over the Great Plains, and a battle commences. And unfortunately, the cold air always wins this battle. Since cold air is more dense, it's heavier, and it wedges itself underneath the warm air. The warm air then rises and literally just self-destructs and explodes into clouds and disintegrates into rain and thunderstorms. Anyways, this battle will likely spawn a few weather systems that could certainly spark some severe storms and rain across the Great Plains. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center is seeing the same things I am, and they've went ahead and put out a very rare day 7 15% risk area for severe weather over here in portions of Texas and Oklahoma. This is something we really have to keep a close eye on. This looks like it's going to be the real deal. And a big contributor to this is that open door in the Gulf of Mexico that's letting in all the warm, moist air. We actually have steaming hot waters down here. The tropical Atlantic is showing no signs of hibernation for winter just yet. I think we could see tropical activity well into November, especially in the Caribbean Sea. In fact, as of filming this, the National Hurricane Center has a 70% chance of tropical cyclone development in the eastern Caribbean. A broad area of low pressure is producing thunderstorms that will likely develop into some sort of cyclone over the next few days. I personally don't see anything big coming out of this particular system, but the tropical threats don't end there. In the wake of this potential system, there is a chance of additional development in the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico, where water temperatures are literally bath-like. Any tropical system that develops in the western Caribbean after next week is possibly going to be a troublemaker here in the US. And pretty much all forecast models are hinting at a very unsettled Caribbean as we go further into November. However, as of right now, there are no big tropical systems in view. The simple fact of the matter is whether or not we get a big hurricane or tropical storm or not, the energy is there, and that energy is compiling, and it's going to be allowed to come into the US because of that big northward bulge in the jet stream. And at some point, another pattern flip will occur, and that pent-up Arctic air will come rushing over the states. If that happens at the same time some Caribbean ocean juice is coming up into the lower 48, things are going to be quite interesting. You know what else is interesting though? Today's sponsor, Blinkist. Feed your brain in under 15 minutes. Y'all, I know you know what it's like to be busy, but at the same time, you want to keep getting smarter. Well, that's where Blinkist comes in. Blinkist is a professional book summary service that exists only to deliver you the key points of over 5,500 different nonfiction books from all over the world. And with their brand new shortcasts, you can get those same insights from your favorite self-help podcasts too. Just think about the time you spend every day waiting for the bus, waiting for me to upload another video. Now, while you're waiting, you can tickle that brain a little bit, get a little bit smarter, get some inflow of info in that dome, you know what I'm saying? And right now, these guys have set up a special deal just for my viewers, the Y'all Squad. Just click that link in the description to get a 7-day trial, and then you're gonna get 25% off a premium membership. One of the many perks of being in the Y'all Squad. That's right, just go ahead and click that link in the description. You're gonna love it, you're not gonna regret it. Now, let's get back into the video. We've been talking a lot about the polar vortex recently and how right now it's a lot colder than usual. And a weak polar vortex is wavy and unstable, sending troughs of polar air southward. Another way to look at this is imagining that the polar vortex is a stretchy ball. Right now, the polar vortex is in a compressed state, meaning that the waves or subvortexes are either closer to the North Pole or less prominent. But soon, the polar vortex is going to start stretching out again. When this happens, part of the elongated ball will sweep over the US. Some forecast models are already hinting at this happening sometime after November 10th. Also, watch how on the experimental seasonal CFS model, you can clearly see the temperature anomaly pattern flip for pretty much everyone as we get deeper into November. One thing that's for certain is that this stretching of the polar vortex is going to take place at some point. But remember, these long-term forecasts are ever changing. The overall idea of what I'm talking about is bound to happen, but the small, minute details that affect you mostly are what's still up in the air, and we won't know for sure what those entail until we get closer to the event. With all that being said though, here's my week-by-week overview of how I think November is going to go. The first week of November is where we're really going to feel the prominence of that ridge, especially in the east. The orange is where we could see the calmest weather and above average temperatures and just generally less precipitation overall. The green is where I think we're going to have unsettled weather, and that could be in the form of snow, rain, or severe weather. And then of course the blue is going to be cold, okay? But that's where the main cold air is. Now week 2 is where we really start seeing some big changes. I expect to see the effects of our big warm bubble flattened by unsettled weather across a big chunk of the United States as the polar vortex tries to infiltrate the US from the north. And week 3 is where I could possibly be the most wrong. I am betting that our polar vortex wave is going to make itself known in the east during this time. This should bring colder than average temperatures across much of the eastern US and unsettled weather from the northern plains down into the deep south. This is also when we really have to watch for that potential merger of tropical moisture, as we could potentially see a big snowstorm during this time if everything lines up perfectly. Week 4 is what I like to call La La Land. No one has a clue what the weather is going to be like during this time period. However, the general pattern will probably support the idea of another ridge returning to the central US after building across the west, setting us up for yet another big pattern flip and above average temperatures for a lot of people as we head into December. It looks like that's going to be the story of this fall, which is actually not uncommon at all. There's going to be lots of fights between cold air and warm air. These fights will bring about rain, snow, and bouts of severe weather for millions of people over the next month or two. But the good news is, despite this constant battle, this constant atmospheric battle, the overall net average for most people in the US is going to be nice, warm weather. So that's good, right? Always look on the bright side of things. Don't be scared, be prepared. I always come on YouTube and I talk about the negatives, right? I talk about the worst case scenarios, I talk about the biggest storms, but hey, let's bask in this moment and just appreciate the fact that for the most part, everything's going to be okay. And of course, as we get closer to these storms actually forming, we're going to get more details and you're going to hear them from me first, I promise. As long as you hit that subscribe button and like this video right now.
Do it right now.
I see you. You're not doing it. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. A huge shout out to all of our members over here. Thank you guys for being such a big part of the channel. Hey, listen, I got another channel, a second channel. It's called Ryan Hall Y'all Extra. This is where I've been putting a lot of my updates recently. I'm doing a lot of shorter form forecasts over there. It actually reminds me a lot of what this channel used to be, but now we kind of focus on the big things on the main Ryan Hall Y'all channel, and we're kind of doing more of the small stuff on the other channel. So if you're interested in more Ryan Hall Y'all content, go subscribe to that channel right now. And just thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh, 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 ooh.